Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us today on the Climate Resilient Sanitation at Scale Lessons from Bangladesh session. My name is Janina Kampoy, and I am the Global Leader for Communications and Marketing at SATO, part of LIXO, and I am your host today. So for today's event, our agenda is the presentation of a case study by IDE. Will also be followed by a panel discussion with some time for questions and answers and a final wrap up. But to set the scene for the conversation today, we have prepared a little quiz. So please put your answers in the chat box. And the question is, what is the biggest climate change in Bangladesh? Number one, rising sea levels. Number two, cyclones. Number three, river flooding. Number four, droughts. Number five, all of the above. So please drop your guesses in the chat box, and also please, throughout the presentations, feel free to put comments and questions in the chat box. Okay, the questions are coming in. Great. Okay. Shall we move to the answer, Jen? Yes, so the answer is number five, all of the above. It is indeed a complex situation, and we'll be covering today some of these strategies to overcome these challenges. And in order to do that, I will invite Silvia Rovelli. Silvia is a development professional based in Dhaka. She's the project manager of the Sunmark's Sanitation Market System project at IDE, where she leads innovative market-based approaches to improve sanitation and resilience in Bangladesh. Over to you, Silvia.
Thank you very much, Janina. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. As just mentioned, I'm going to present a case study on climate change and sanitation markets in Bangladesh. Am I audible? Is it okay? Yes. Please, next slide. In all our interventions at IDE, starts with the people, using human-centered design to understand people's lives, context, learning the barriers, and also incorporate users' feedback to ensure that the final products and services in sanitation in WASH are affordable and desirable. We mobilize markets, private sector, and build connection between market actors, as markets are the most powerful force for significant, widespread, and lasting impact on rural communities. And also our work, our interventions are results oriented. We collect and analyze real-time data on quality, cost effectiveness, and performance, aiming for significant economic, social, and environmental impact for a huge large number of people. Next, please. When we talk about climate change in Bangladesh, the country is among actually the top 10 most vulnerable, climate vulnerable countries as per the 2024 World Risk Index. It is already experiencing a series of more frequent and intense extreme events due to the geographical and also socioeconomic factors. Positions in the south part of the Himalayan range, the country is also hosting three of the major Asian rivers, the Ganges, Brahmaputra, and Meghna, which form the delta, the major delta in Asia and in the world. And it is a flat and lowland topography, more prone and susceptible to floods, inundation, and cyclones. On the other side, also high population density and large population dependent on agriculture and natural resources make the country more vulnerable to climate disasters. The World Bank estimated that 19.9 million internal climate migrants are expected by 2050, increasing the challenges for urban infrastructures and migrants' access to resources. Next, please. If we analyze more deeper the map of the country in terms of climate change, we can see how different climate hazards are affecting different regions. For example, the central part of the country faces severe floods, waterlogging, and riverbank erosion, mainly where the river are concentrated, and predominantly in the lowland. In these areas, heavier rainfall and also meltwater coming from the Himalayan ranges are the cause for higher risk for inundation, floods, river erosion, leading to substantial damage to infrastructure, livelihoods, agriculture, and housing. Next, please. In the south part of the country, instead, more frequent we can find cyclones, storms, and tidal surges, causing sea level rise, increased sea surface temperature, and salinity inclusion. Both in the agricultural lands, making agriculture more difficult, and also in the drinking water supplies, exposing the community to health hazards. In the west, north part of the country, instead, these regions typically receive less rainfall, and they are affected by heat waves and more frequent drought. Next, please. So, from the risk hazard perspective, how climate change impacts sanitation. Sanitation infrastructures and facilities are often severely affected by increased and prolonged rainfalls, cyclones and post-cyclones effects like waterlogging. Rural areas mostly depend on offset pit latrines, which are also very common in not only in the rural areas, but also in smaller towns and peri-urban areas. And these latrines are easily washed away or flooded, and the superstructures can be damaged by strong cyclone winds. Cyclones can also lead to high waves, leaving the land and toilet substructures inundated for days. In this situation, wastewater can discharge into the environment, and waterlogging also can pollute surface water sources with saline water and fecal matter. So fresh water is increasingly scarce, contaminated by salinity, algal bloom, microbes, iron, and arsenic. So due to the poor sanitation and water supplies, waterborne disease become prevalent during these events. Last but not least, also higher and more variable temperatures can reduce the life cycle of the superstructures, leading to corrosion. Next, please. When we talk instead about the vulnerability perspective, we can see how climate change worsens inequalities. So those who are already marginalized and discriminated against often suffer most impacts from climate change. Poor and marginalized households on one side, they are often install less resilient sanitation infrastructures which have a less durability, higher risk of destruction. So they are forced to rebuild them, and due to their poor income, they are also trapped in a poverty cycle. In addition, they are more exposed to health risk from polluted water and poor sanitation, increasing also their loss of income. Women and girls in particular are more exposed to gender-based violence during these extreme events. They have anxiety and fear to go outside to look for a toilet, and they may face problem of menstrual hygiene management, infections, and leading to a loss in their days of school or work. When we consider instead of the children, they have higher risk, they are facing higher risk from contaminated water due to their hand-to-mouth behaviors, and also they often play close to the ground. Last but not least, people with disability also are affected by these events because they depend on help from others, and they more difficulty can access sanitation facilities. Next, please. Despite the significant progress in reducing open defecation in Bangladesh, so Bangladesh has been declared open defecation free in 2015. The quality and safety of sanitation facilities remains still a major challenge in the country, especially in rural areas, but also in urban, we can say. Around 70 million people living in rural areas are still lacking access to safely managed latrine. Next. What are the main gaps in the latrine installation? So what we found through our initial assessment, so we saw that the choice of the poor quality materials that the household make to construct their latrines is one of the first causes, followed by the fact that they rely on untrained masons to install or repair these latrines, and the installation of one-size-fits-all approach, then not considering the needs for all different households, like pregnant women, elderly. And so all these factors lead to additional costs for them in terms of healthcare, in terms of replacing, as we say, the latrines, and investment in general for this. Next, please. So, what is the approach that we are using in our project? So mainly we adopted a sanitation market or market-based sanitation system, which is a development approach that focusing on catalyzing the private sector to lead the delivery of affordable and desirable products and solutions for low-income consumers. So we work we work with the private sector and to strengthen the supply chain, and at the same time we stimulate the demand from the end users who are willing and able to pay. And last but not least, we also work with the public sector to support and the strategies that target subsidies for ultra poor and marginalized communities. So this public-private development partnership approach aims for sustainable long-term solution, addressing barriers and increasing the social welfare of the community. Thank you. Next. In the next few slides, we see some of the activities that have been implemented through the sanitation market system project in the last 5 years, considering the different pillars. So we start from the demand creation. So the main activities implemented to sensitize and increase the demand from the communities were including above and below the line marketing, technology introduction sessions, and behavioral change campaigns. Next, please. Next, please. On the left side of this, we can find a group sales meeting. So it is a session conducted in, not the previous one, sorry. The previous one, sorry. Okay, group sales meetings are usually conducted in communities where still lacking access to sanitation or improved sanitation, where the latrine producer trained through the project provide specification and information about their product. Specifically, there is has in the sense one SATO pen and is describing the benefits of installing it in their households. On the right side, we can see a demonstration unit in a latrine produce center where different latrine options have been displayed to allow the customers to choose, make their choices in a more informed way based on their income. Next, please. Here, there are in different regions, as we say, there are different climate event hazards that are affecting the country. So latrine producers are also, we try to explore how to reach communities. So we have here some toilets that are one toilet actually that has been shifted to a community which is living in an inundated area during the rainy season. And on the right side is a pilot of a raised plinth toilet demonstrated in one of the latrine produce center in a region which is frequently inundated. Next, please. On the supply side, the main work started with the scouting and the capacity development of the latrine producers, which have been later on formed into sanitation business associations, and they have been linked with the private sector through different meetings. Next, please. So here we can see one of the training being conducted through the project where latrine producer attended both theoretical sessions and they learn about the market-based market sanitation system and marketing strategies and also practical sessions. They learn how to cast rings and slabs using SATO pen and ceramic pens. On the right side, there is a private sector platform meeting. This is one of the platforms used for the project to link dealers and representatives of different private actors with the latrine producers trained to the project. Next, please. In this slide, we can see, on one meeting, so regular coordination meeting were also in place between the project team and our private sector partners, one of which is RFL. RFL is the main plastic company producers in Bangladesh, which is also producing SATO pens. And on the right side is the CEO of Lixil visiting one of the latrine producers in our field. Next. As we said, so after it's not only about private sector, but we are also working with the public, with the government agencies to advocate for latrines for marginalized and poor communities. And we are also engaging with NGOs and other CSOs to make latrines available to their beneficiaries through the intervention of our latrine producer trained through the project. Next, please. So in this slide, we can see the main results achieved through all ID interventions in the country using market-based sanitation approach since 2013 up to June 2015. So all over, more than 4,000 latrine producers have been trained, out of which more than 100 were females, which it looks like a limited number, but considering the context, is a good number. 15 million latrines, more than 15 million latrines were sold, and more than 74 million people impacted through improved sanitation latrines. Next. During the project, the project covered covered 25 districts from north to south of the country, we faced also climate events, and so we piloted some inclusive solutions to respond to climate change. One of them, it was in the south part of the country, the coastal areas, where we piloted this circular design with the intention to reduce the force of the wind on the superstructure, and included also a raised platform to to reduce the effect of flooding, and natural water and natural lighting and ventilation were also considered to make it more inclusive and safe for women. Next, please. In this slide, you can see some feedback experience from the households that installed these latrines in their premises. I'm not going to read. You can read it. And then we can. It's just 1 minute, and we change the slide. Next, please. If we talk about the lesson learned from the project, there are several related to private sector public intervention and also the climate change event. So we need to consider, first of all, the preferences of disadvantaged households, as we say, that those who are more frequently used to purchase latrines that are going to look for low quality products due to their low income. Different coordination meetings at Upazila in district, means at local and regional level, with the private sector and also NGOs, created a great platform and opportunity to introduce low-cost improved sanitation technologies like SATO pen to different stakeholders, and also introduce the trained latrine producers to them. In the ODF communities and open defecation-free communities, the interventions related to allocate sanitation subsidies are very limited. So these subsidies from institutions, these are not sufficient compared to the actual need and demands from the community. So there is a reducing the adoption, the possibility to adopt quality sanitation products and solutions. NGOs, working with different NGOs in the wash sector. So we found them very confident to work with the trained LPs through the project, as they are able to provide quality support to construct the latrines for their beneficiaries. In terms of safely managed sanitation and awareness in rural areas, this is still very limited. And where rural communities are still facing challenges on how to dispose and where to dispose their human waste. So this is a point which is need to take more attention on in further interventions. Next, please. In enhancing rural sanitation access through product diversification and market tailoring. So product diversification is essential, considering that market segmentation and the different needs of the rural households. So that's also one of the purpose of these demonstration units in the latrine produce centers, so where different customers can easily understand what are the options and identify the better fit for them. As we mentioned also, so latrine producers were formed into sanitation-based associations. So these associations grouping around 15, 20 LPs in region-wise, they have more negotiation capacities to establish partnership with the private sector compared to individual LPs, and they already were able to ensure product supplies, purchasing in bulk products, and negotiating better prices for them. And last but not least, some of the latrine producers became also dealers for private sector products, and they were able to ensure that supply chain of SATO pen and other products related to installing latrines were available even in very remote areas, which ensured to make the communities more sustainable and more able to utilize quality products. Thank you. I think you are muted, Janina.
Sorry, thank you. Great, Sylvia. Thanks for the very informative and thoughtful presentation. I had the opportunity to visit Bangladesh a couple of years ago, and I could see the strength and the impact of the great work that the IDE team is doing on the ground. But as we move to the second part of the event, I would like to invite my colleague, Jason Cardozi, the Global Leader for Partnerships at SATO, part of Lixo. He is going to conduct the panel and introduce the panelists. Jason, over to you.
Great, thank you, Janina, and thank you, Sylvia, for describing that partnership. And as Janina mentioned, it has had great impact and a lot of lessons that we're using every day. So really appreciate that presentation. We've got an excellent panel now with very unique perspectives. And I just want to also remind you to everyone, and thank you for joining. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat. We will take some time at the end to answer them. We'll also try to respond in the chat directly. So please, for Sylvia or any of the panelists you're about to hear from, please remember to put some questions in the chat. So we have, as I mentioned, we have a great panel. We have Shakibul Shaheen, who's the head of marketing for RFL. That is one of the largest plastic manufacturers in Asia, who will also make the SATO pan. We then have a video from a latrine producer, that's Monica Begum, who will be joining us after. And then we go to Dr. Zaina Rashid, who's the program manager and a specialist in climate adaptive and economic development at the Embassy of Switzerland from Dhaka, Bangladesh. And to round us out, we will have Mr. Adnan Hakim, who's a wash specialist at UNICEF Bangladesh. So let's get started, and we'll start with RFL. So thanks so much again for joining us, Shakibul. And I think I'd like to start by asking you, in terms of your products, and you make products for Bangladesh and for other markets in Asia, but how do you ensure that people who need the products the most and are often in the hardest reached places are able to access these products?
So thank you, Jason, for your great questions. And myself, Shakibul Shaheen, and I'm from RFL Plastic Limited and working as a head of marketing. So RFL Plastic Limited is a part of Pran RFL Group, and we have a strong distribution networks in Bangladesh. That's why we are able to reach even hard to reach consumers in Bangladesh. And there are many other ways we are reaching our consumers and our customers that I can say extensive rural distribution networks and RFL has one of the largest distribution chain in Bangladesh with the dealers and sub-dealers, and is spread across the country in urban, semi-urban, and rural areas. And the local retail partnership also, we have a partnership with thousands of small shops, QX retailers, and semi-urban markets and essential households products are always close to the communities that they are needed the most, and affordable and durable product. RFL is always set their mind in serving the country's people, and we are the largest plastic manufacturer in Bangladesh, and so that we are keeping the price is very competitive and designing products suited to the local conditions, and we are producing the durable plastic furnitures, buckets, and households products, and they ensure the affordability and accessibility for the low-income household in Bangladesh, right? And the product variety for all the segments, whatever product we are producing from our house for the livelihood of every people in Bangladesh. We are concerned about the varieties of the product and the transport and supply chains extent in these terms that our logistics and the other distribution essentials we have in our company, we can ensure the last mile delivery in Bangladesh, in anywhere in the Bangladesh, even in the health tracks or sea areas in Bangladesh. So, and the export and border markets, we are exporting the product from Bangladesh to through the land port, as a riverian country, we are taking the benefit from the river also. And in short, RFL ensure access to scale, affordability, and a last mile distribution approach, making our household product available to almost every corner of the Bangladesh. And I also want to say you the distribution extent that we have our own delivery vehicle that is 1500 plus, and we have our own warehouse that is more than 40 in across the countries in different locations, and we have a distributor who are directly working with us, that is 5,000 plus, and retailers is 40,000 plus. And also we have enlisted LPs who are connected with the RFL, that is more than 5,000 in Bangladesh. So that is all about how we can reach our last mile customers in a way we are practicing from RFL. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Shakabul, and that's quite impressive. So I think in this case, like the size is enabled you to keep the cost low and have a network that reaches the entire country, with which this project clearly benefited from. So I think now we can turn to the other end completely of the supply chain, and I think we have a video of a latrine producer who will describe a little bit how she engages and reaches customers.
We
I'm
can't
not getting
hear.
audio. Yeah,
Yeah, there's no audio.
so I guess we just have to read the subtitles.
Can we restart the video, Martin, please, with audio, please?
I think we have to read, and then perhaps we can put the link to the video in the chat so people can access it. Okay. Yeah, unfortunately, we're very sorry that we couldn't have the audio. I think we'll try to get perhaps the link to that video in the chat, and people can watch it in their own time. It's very short, but I think it's much more impactful if you actually do hear it. So I think we should try to communicate that if we can, which is great. But for now, let's move on. So we've heard from the private sector. Now let's go to some of the public sector and the supporters of this project. Turning first to Dr. Zinnia with the Embassy of Switzerland. And I'd like to start the question with you. So broadly speaking, a lot going on in the bilateral world these days, a lot of challenges, but also probably opportunities as well. So what is the perception among bilaterals such as yourselves of the private sector actors that we just heard from, and SATO and so on, and their role in scaling up access to sanitation and enhancing climate resilience?
Thank you, Jason. Thanks, everyone, and good afternoon from Dhaka. Yes, it was a nice presentation as made by IDE. We also heard the lessons learned as well and the challenges. I would say from the development and bilateral agency side, the Sanmark model, as you all understand, that we actually experimented linking the private sector with the national supply chain. the one unique side of this Sanmark design is the private sector not only meant by the conglomerate or the global private sector, as well as we are also linking the very informal local private informal micro entrepreneurs. So we are linking these both kind of private sectors to the national supply chain of improved and affordable sanitation products, so that we can create availability and also demand for it at the rural grassroots level consumer. So excuse me. So over the last 10 years of Sanmark implementation, starting from 2015 to 2025, the Sanmark model actually demonstrated the viability of the market system approach. And this is very important for our rural sanitation, because our country, Bangladesh, sanitation is all about public service, public goods in terms of the subsidy provision and everything. But now the Sanmark model actually over the 10 years have shown up a considerable scale. And also it is proving household increasing willingness to invest for the more and more improved sanitation facilities. Now, for the DP, development partner, bilateral agencies, and all the relevant stakeholder in the water and sanitation sector, the Sanmark model actually created an evidence that for a country like Bangladesh, the role of private sector is instrumental for sure, because private sector has shown up that they are able to replicate, to scale up the model for improved market-driven sanitation model. But also I would mention here that there is one critical observation as well. At one side, when we say the private sector is the driver, the major driver of making the rural sanitation sector functional, and they are coming up with product variation, they're coming up with lots of service offers, as well as they're also applying different kind of market expansion strategies. But a continued attention to the integration of the market system is also a very important part of it. Why we are saying that, for example, engaging government and developing their strengthened ownership is also the other part of the story, in Bangladesh. So that is why government ownership can build the private sector more capacitated, they play the enabling role, of course, and when they play the promote the market driven approach, and that's where private sector can play even bigger role, so that is the leveraging point for the private sector. For example, the accreditation process, when the local private sector, very informal micro entrepreneur, they are coming up with their own customized techniques of installation and everything, while the ownership from the government, they can also strengthen their engagement. They can also apply more quality standards, vigilance, and supportive role. And that's how the very informal private sector can build their capacity. That's what we learned. Last but not the least is the private-public partnership. Government ownership can only make sense to this kind of PPP development. And I think Sylvia nicely presented in her presentation that partnership can only provide more public-private partnership can provide lots of solutions. One of the biggest lessons learning for us was also creating access to finance provision for the private sector, and also for the consumer household level, rural household level, and there devising more public-private partnership can offer lots of solution. Let's talk about the impact-based financing. So that kind of financing innovation, provisional things can actually minimize the production cost at one side of the latent producer level, or even the national conglomerate or the global actor. And consequently, it can reduce the retail price of the product, and that's how we can encourage the ultimate consumer who are purchasing or procuring this kind of product. Now, you already also mentioned, Jason, about the climate resilience. I will only say on this point that private sector, there is only one important thing they can play is more and more investment in the innovation of the product, and also customized or context-specific solutions. If you think about Bangladesh, as in the beginning of the presentation, Sylvia nicely mentioned how climate impact related and disaster risk prone country we are in the global scenario, you see. So if the private sector is coming up with more and more investment for the product development and context specific solution, I think that would be excellent of introducing cutting edge technologies into this water and sanitation sector, or as well as approaches, and that can move them beyond the outdated models and services. Let's talk about the flood resilience or cyclone resilient latrine structure in our country. It would have immense impact if the private sector like Litsil, like RFL, they come up with this kind of investment and then bring in the market. And also, I would also mention about the waste management. A country like Bangladesh, the waste management is just a nightmare. So when it comes to the sanitation, it has a biggest implication for the environmental issues, for the eco-friendly practices, health practice, safely managed sanitation is one of the critical part of it. So private sector can really come up with their increased investment and enhance the climate resilience. If I have time, I can also talk a little more about it. Over to you, Jason.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Zinnia. Really appreciate that. Very comprehensive too. And I think, we have to take that challenge as the private sector, and we need to mainstream climate resilience into research and development. I think that's very clear. I think also touching on the leadership of government, I think everyone would agree with that, and we need to double down on that, especially in an environment where we need to leverage that leadership and use our resources very carefully in how we invest as both the private sector and the public sector into that. And then also really like your comment about the ultimate consumer who will determine whether we succeed or fail in any of these projects or initiatives. So very helpful. I appreciate that. And then finally, I'd like to turn to you, Mr. Adnam from UNICEF. So UNICEF is all over the world, 150 plus countries. So we'd really be interested in hearing your perspective, and how can the experiences and lessons from this example with SATO and IDE be applied, and to what extent can these types of partnerships be replicated in other areas facing similar sanitation challenges, market specific, but similar, very broadly speaking, and also with all the climate vulnerabilities and how those play out in different countries. So welcome.
Thanks, Jason, and thanks. The previous speaker already put the light about the sanitation and its need. So, in terms of overall sanitation issue, and from the UNICEF side, like how we Bangladesh perceive that one, and as per your interest to know how it could be replicated and cascaded to the other places, right? So before going to that one, so if you look at the Bangladesh case, and who are our audience actually, we have the population about the 178 million. So you could understand the generation of your feces every day, and this is the volume you have to manage for the sanitation, right? So there is a big sanitation market as it is, as you were look at the part. And in Bangladesh, since 2020, for the MDG goal, Millennium Development Goal, so Bangladesh government was with the all sector partners and also support from the strong support from the UNICEF. So it was a strong move to eliminate the open defecation. And if you look about the curve down about the open defecations, the remarkable from the 2020, 2000 to 2015, it reduced almost the only 1% people's now in country practicing the open defecation. So that was the big achievement, right? So why I'm telling that one, so moving for the market mechanism and the sanitation marketing approach. So we found, so this is the one precondition. So that country or the nation should have a social norm to adopt toilet facilities at their home or their practice. So this is the first precondition. If the country achieve the open defecation or they have the social norm to practice the sanitation, So then you can go for the functional market and the product and the private sector integration. So as Bangladesh achieved that one properly, and now this is actually becoming the norm. When people think about their shelter design or construction of the shelter, by default, they also think the shelter means it is included a toilet facility for their household, for their dignity and their safety for their kids and other things. So it's become the part. Now, why UNICEF also interested with the Swiss Development Corporation and to getting the other collaboration with the ID and other part in Bangladesh related to the sanitation marketing. So we all give the effort to change the behavior. So people behave and social norm change. But to practice this behave and continue this behave, you require the product and you require the functional market. And that is the beauty of the sanitation marketing, what we found and what is working right now, right? And for the product, if you uh, divided the market, so actually there is the urban sanitation market and the rural sanitation market. And urban sanitation market, there is the lot of competitor, lot of product, high-ended product, and the different solutions is there. But the challenge for us to bring the peoples who are untouched and unreached in the rural area, and their affordability, their challenge with the climate, their challenge with their livelihood, and their practice level of the sanitation is very different than the urban. And that is the another part, and really it is getting the momentum because country should have a strength for this production line, and RFL and that type of agency who are really strong footprint in Bangladesh, and they could produce and supply their product all over the Bangladesh is give a one key part to continue these things. And for the SATO, so this is the uh, we could say it, so this is the innovation for the SATO pen and the product, which is giving the extra mileage for the whole sanitation marketing concept for the Bangladesh, because this is affordable. You saw from the Sylvia's presentation and all of others. So the product required to be affordable, not only the affordable, as well as the product should ensure the safely managed sanitation conditions. And Satopen innovation, so this is the very uh, specific innovation that could break the market and give us the confidence to push it for the vulnerable peoples, the rural peoples, and other peoples. So this is the part like your product availability and what the partnership with the ID. So not only the product, you need a functional market and the capable human people, human resource who could produce this sanitation product and can sell to the rural communities and help the peoples in practicing their behavior about the sanitation. And the whole sanitation marketing, what the ID did at the ground level, actually, they make a functional market and which is easy, accessible for the people and get their choice about the sanitation. So from this part, from the last 10 years, what we learned from the Bangladesh, and we are cascading that knowledge to our region and the other region for the collaboration. The thing is, we always assess to replicate and replicate this concept for the sanitation marketing for the adaptation in other countries. Definitely, the social norms should be there about the toilet. So this is the first condition. The second, it should have a supply chain for the product if that country have that capacity. And the third is actually if you have the private sectors who could produce the human resource and give the product to the local market, like the capable institution like the ID and others who could do the catalyst part. So if these three conditions is matching, so sanitation marketing approach is the best approach to push and achieve for the safely managed sanitation that what we envision, and particularly for your rural context. We are not saying this is very applicable for the urban and the urban slum context, but this is very applicable where is the rural context. So that is the things, and we are continuously working, and definitely these market mechanism systems. Also, last thing, this is also one example we could say it. Like after the 2015, so when Bangladesh government and Bangladesh we achieve about the open defecation success rate, so then there is a one pressure came to the sectors and the government side as well that okay, we done our sanitation things and it could be moved. But last 10 years sanitation marketing program actually also showed the new pathway for the government and the sectors to keep continue this market. It required the functional market and the private sectors to take it forward. And after the 10 years, now government again took their national sanitation program to continue this market mechanism based your sanitation push, that people move from the unimproved and unsafe sanitation to the safe sanitation, what is our ultimate goal for the health and environment. So that's it from my side. So if you have any further cross things, so I'm happy to answer that one. Jason, over to you, Jason.
Hey, thank you, Adam. I really appreciate that. And thanks for framing it in terms of the size of market, in terms of the large amount of human waste with 178 million people all doing what they need to do. So that was a great framing for us. And also, yeah, Bangladesh, I think we have to recognize the huge progress that's been made, the social norm change that you talked about, which has provided the foundation for all of us, whether we're companies or public sector, coming in to support the government programs. Really appreciate that. And then laying out clearly, you know, what we need to do in terms of affordability, availability, and so on going forward. So I just want to thank all the panelists. Really appreciate your interventions. It's great having the unique perspectives from different types of organizations working on the same problem coming from different perspectives. And we have a little bit of time for questions. I see a couple in the chat. And there's one here for you, Sylvia. It's from India. And she said she is surprised to see the sheet roofs in some of the images. In India, these tend to fly off. And for climate resilience, we are forced to have concrete roofs. How do they ensure the safety of the toilet roofs in Bangladesh? Thank you. You can address that.
Okay, so basically, I understand the context is very similar. It was a pilot, what we experienced there. So the roof were attached with nails to wood on the top of the pillars. So after the piloting, and this latrine already faced 2-3 cyclones in the last couple of years in the areas where were installed, and they are still standing, and there were not require any repair. So, but we found that maybe instead of using some wood, it would be better to use concrete pillars. But the roof, in terms also, I mean, the steel roof is still a more viable option for these low-height structures in terms also of price for the toilet, because we work with very marginalized communities. I mean, it's difficult for them to install concrete structures. For the price is much higher. So from our experience, I mean, these structures are sustained already, actually. A couple of cyclones and no repair was required. So.
Thanks, Sylvia. And I think there's another question that you could start with, and someone else may want to jump in on, from Tanzania, Karibu. I would like to know how the households were selected for the subsidy scheme, and what about the households who cannot completely afford any cost for toilet construction?
So I can take the question. In terms of how household selection, so since this is a market-based program, the markets decides who gets selected. So we're giving people choices on what kind of toilets they would like to buy. We completely understand market-based solution will not solve everything. It's not a silver bullet. It doesn't solve everything. So there are households who will not be able to construct their own toilet or afford their own toilet, even in an EMI basis, even in a subsidy basis. So in that regards, what we figured out is there's already a lot of investment being made through other development partners, through other schemes, through government provision. So the best uses of the resources of the project would be to link with this investment with the manufacturers, especially our latrine producers. So what we did was we linked the existing investments that were made in those geographical location. We provided technical advices and recommendation on how households should be selected, what are the criteria it should be based on which household will be selected for a free toilet. And when the constructions were happening, we recommended that it's not being done through a central procurement system where probably a big manufacturer would come in and produce 200, 500,000 latrines, but to give these procurements to smaller latrine producers, such as the ones that we are training, divided among them, 30, 50 of them, so that eventually their business also grows. They are linked to market actors that is more permanent, that will continue to provide subsidized toilets to the people who would really deserve it, and it continues without disrupting the market. So that's the approach we use because in all projects, you cannot do everything at the same time. So we realize this project is more related to the market-based intervention, but there are other funding mechanisms that provides other ways of subsidizing the toilets. And the best case scenario for us would be to link and coordinate and collaborate with others.
Great. Thank you so much for coming in, Samir. Really appreciate that. There's a couple more questions on the chat. Unfortunately, we do have a hard stop because this is an online session, so we need to move to the wrap up. So, but I would invite RFL and SATO, perhaps Rashidul, and also Sylvia, if you could just check the chat and see if you can respond to the remaining questions there before we close. And also just want to mention that Rashidul posted the latrine producers video, so you can have a look at that as well. And with that, thank you very much again to the panel and also Samir for jumping in and helping to address the questions. I'd like to now turn it back to Janina to start wrapping us up. Thanks so much.
Thanks very much, everyone. Samir, it's back to you for the final remarks and final insights. We only have 3 minutes, so I would really appreciate if you could stick to 2 minutes. Thank you.
Definitely. But before I go to wrap up, just one clarification. The presentation mentioned 15 million latrines sold. That is the goal that we are working towards. But as of today, the actual number is 1.5 million toilets sold. And we are very proud of this achievement. We know that there's still a long way to go. This feels like a very full circle moment for us. For more than a decade, we've been working alongside this group of partners towards a common goal. And through this journey, we have really seen change is possible, scale is possible when markets and systems come together. This journey has also shown us that the market-based approach to sanitation is something that once seemed too ambitious can in fact deliver a real lasting change, as we've seen with the numbers. But these numbers are more than statistics. They represent dignity, resilience, and hope for millions of households in Bangladesh. They also represent choice, giving people the ability to select, purchase, and access sanitation products that meet their needs rather than having solution imposed on them. That choice is the heart of the sustainable change. They also represent the power of entrepreneurs like Menika Begum, who are the true champions of this movement. Unfortunately, due to the technical difficulties, we could not hear her from today. But over the last couple of years, we have met hundreds of sanitation entrepreneurs embedded with our project, like her, with their own story, their own ambitions, but all united by one common goal: to bring the safe sanitation to communities. And the real driver behind this impact has been the collaboration and partnership of a diverse group of actors: government, donors, private sector, civil society, focusing on the common goals. So many of us are here today. This collective effort has earned recognition, awards, and for celebrating the strength of partnership. But beyond the accolades, the real success has come from the continuous adapting to the context, learning and tweaking the program along the way. If you ask us, have you solved our sanitation problem? No, it's too far complex for any single project to solve. But we believe we have made a dent. And more importantly, we have created a blueprint for others to follow and build upon and improve. And yet we know the journey is not finished. Climate change is testing the resilience of everything we've built. Floods, cyclones, riverbank erosions threaten to undo all the hard-won progress. As we've heard today, sanitation is not just a health issue. It has become a climate issue, a gender issue, and an equity issue. So there, the real lesson lies. Market-based model is not static. They adapt, they evolve, and they have to innovate in the face of crisis. And hopefully that's the legacy of the Sandmarks that is leaving behind in Bangladesh, a model that works, a model that can scale, a model that should keep on learning. I'll leave with this comedian Trevor Noah. In his book, he captures the truth about toilets, and which only the comedians with their humor can reflect reality. He wrote that the sanitation remains something profoundly human. We all share the most basic need, no matter of our status or wealth. It strips away the titles, the fame, the riches, and brings us back to the place of humility. In the moment, we are all the same. And that's the heart of the work, ensuring that every person, regardless of who they are and where they live, have access to safe, dignified sanitation. So we hope this work we can continue forward together with government, donors, private sector, and communities, because collectively is the only way that we can ensure sanitation systems are built to last, and even in the face of climate change. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Samir, and thanks everyone for joining. We are up to time, so if you want to know more about the great work that IDE does, please scan this QR code. If you want to learn more about SATO, please visit our booth on the ground floor for 16, just opposite the cafe, or visit our website, subscribe to our newsletter. Thanks, everyone, and have a great day.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.